The Hierotek Circle were introduced in Kill Team's second season. They debuted as one of the weakest teams released right out of the gate. Their overdependence on command points, as well as excessive need for action points on low APL units, made it near impossible to set any combos up on the field. Since their release, they received 2 Dataslates worth of buffs, as this video was put together under the Q1 2023 Dataslate release. Massive upgrades to the leader type units, reductions to the overall action point reliance, and one of the biggest changes, not just to the team, but a common limit used across all of Kill Team. I bought into the Hierotek day one. I almost didn't since everyone locally sold out of the Shadow Vaults box. Little bit of a journey to get my team, which heightened my disappointment when, in reading their initial rules, I realized just how useless a lot of this team was. Low APL and move stats, the resurrection ability and the ploys cost a point, whereas the Compendium Necron had their ploy reduced to 0 because I guess it was more balanced. The heals were all wrong. The leader's shooting abilities were all wrong. The Despotek, that was then. This is now. Let's take a look at the team. Most kill teams come with a team-wide unique ability. The Hierotek's ability is based firmly in the core Necron concept of high levels of durability, including a chance to escape from death. Living Metal, for instance, allows damaged units to regain health at the start of each turn. 2 for most units, 1 for the little support bugs. Great for the durability. The reanimation protocol is where the revive function plays in. When a unit is incapacitated, if reanimation protocols are triggered either through an on-table ability or through the use of a ploy, a token is placed under the unit that falls. From that point forward, at the beginning of new turning points, you check and see if the unit comes back. A d6 roll of a 3+ triggers the revive. Failing does not clear the token, it simply remains in place for a later turn. After the Q1 Dataslate, this was majorly improved. For one, the Living Metal heal now occurs after the revive, improving the starting health. They also increased the heal from 1d3 up to 3 health plus 1d3. The original rules would see an immortal returning with potentially 1 health. A light breeze could crumple that. Now upon revival, that immortal will come back with at least 6 wounds, more than half, so immediately out of the wounded state. On top of that, the unit can now return and pick the order it has to be in, rather than retaining its prior order. The Dataslate also claims the unit can be set up within 3 inches of the token, just not in engagement range of an enemy. The thing is, the original text is in bullet points and claims the unit must be as close as possible to the original token. Since the Dataslate doesn't word itself by showing the bullet point changes, I'm not sure if the 3-inch setup is in replacement of the "it must be as close as possible" rule. Unclear here. Let me know in the comments what you think. Now, reanimation protocols might sound amazing, but it is still a gamble. There is no way to force a unit to return and no way to reroll the resurrection check. It can be huge if it happens, but definitely don't rely on it. Going over the Hierotek strat ploys, everything is at least useful here when popped in the right moment. Relentless Onslaught is incredible when it is time to go close range. Melee is almost not an option on the Hierotek, so making close range shooting have a free reroll for the turn is a good way to limit command point spending while maximizing the damage output on most of the weapons. Remember that if using the Leader and Apprentice Magnification Conduit ability, this won't help. More on that later. Intractable March is the counter to the low movement Immortal and Deathmark units. It brings their speed up to the total 6 inches that most units have, but they must be in engage. This can actually be good when paired with Undying Androids. This provides all of your units the ability to retain a defense dice while standing out in the open or just considered not in cover. 2 interactions with this. When facing down guns with the no cover rule, it might be better to use this and stand in the open. You can't retain a save for being in cover because of this rule, and being in cover prevents the ploy from happening. Standing in the open will allow you to retain the save against the no cover rule. Second is that when a unit takes blast damage, the units visible to and near it are not considered in cover. So they would be able to retain off this rule, even if there is cover between them and the source unit, since they aren't considered in cover for the attack. When it is time to go mobile and spray some death downfield, activating all 3 of these ploys tends to be the way to go. An expensive round, but sometimes Kill Team can be very much go big or go home. Last for the strategic ploys is Dimensional Concealment. A bit more limited, but still useful at times. It allows Deathmarks to change their orders for an action point. This ploy can be used once, and my favorite gimmick with it is to go all Deathmarks and use it turn 2. Hopefully all your Deathmarks are placed well and can go in and out of conceal while taking a round of shots at the enemy. This isn't an amazing play, just fun to do sometimes. The tactical ploys are fairly okay. Dimensional Translocation is a fun off-field setup. During the deployment phase, you can spend a command point to allow a Deathmark to be placed in the kill zone during turn 1, anywhere outside of 6 inches from an enemy or their deployment zone. This is considered a normal move, so know that this unit can't shoot. It can be set up with any order, and it will also have 1 action point to do a mission action or a dash or something. Good way to scout it out. And in close quarters, it will allow the unit to move 6 inches and perform an open door action before turn 1 starts instead. Good way to snag an early point, but at times, the unit will be very out of position. Leech Power is a great way for your leader to gain an extra action point for its activation. The cryptic you choose will have a ton of options during its activation, and this can be useful. We'll talk about that in a minute. Cortical Subjugation allows you to force a shooting attack to target any Hierotek unit within 4 inches of the cryptic that isn't in engagement range of an enemy, even if the cover lines wouldn't allow for it. Keep your leader alive. Super important. Commence Reanimation is the bread and butter ploy. When a unit is incapacitated, it triggers the reanimation attempt. This used to cost a command point and made the starved Hierotek have a real struggle turn to turn. Making it free has really helped the overall teamwork a lot better. All these ploys have their place in the overall team strategies when trying to achieve the in-kill zone missions. The Hierotek specific missions include Unyielding Ancients. You need to feel dominant in your matchup for this. Revealing this card is letting your opponent know you expect them to fold like paper, and it must be revealed turn 1. Disrespectful. The goal is to put at least 3 units within 6 inches of mid kill zone at the end of turn 4. If one of them is your leader, you get 2 points. If you have confidence in your dominance, go for it. Unearth Artifice involves some extra work. You place a token 6 inches away from your drop zone. A unit must spend 2 action points to unearth it and make it active. You have to control the unearthed token in any turning point before the end as well as the end to get both VP. Worthy of Study has you picking 2 enemy units. Your opponent picks one of them to be marked. When that unit is downed, a token is placed. Having an ally or a cryptic/apprentic within certain ranges and in control of the token nets some VP. This is where Tac Ops mind games come into play. If the enemy have limited good melee units, picking them as the targets could force your opponent to limit one of their uses to prevent your points gain. Just a fun tool to keep in the box. Phase Oculars were buffed a few Dataslates ago and kept the benefit. Equipable only to Deathmarks, this item allows them to guarantee at least 1 crit out of their shots as long as they get 1 normal. 4 attacks hitting on 2s. If all of them miss, you may want to hang it up. Hyperphase Blade. Only usable to make the Immortals the only real melee option for the regular units on the field. Tesla Weave can cause up to 3 mortal wounds when an operative charges enemies. It is a low chance, but getting 1 wound against a low health unit you charge could let you down it in a swing. Might be good. The Arc Shock Projector increases the range of the splash on the Immortal Tesla carbines from 2 to 3 inches. Be careful with this. Splash occurs to all targets in range. enemies and allies. The Phase Shifter gives your cryptic of choice a 4+ invulnerable. Check if your opponent has some scary AP weapons. This is sometimes a must in those situations. The Devourer Nanoscarabs are the Hierotek's only grenade weapon. The trick is they are single target. The damage isn't bad and could be a good way to down a sniper hiding in the shadows. Before the buff, I would give it to my Apprentice since it had a better chance to hit than its staff, but that has changed. This is down to whatever overall plan you have. Indirect weapons can be good ways to go for kills or deter pushes from KG teams. Last up, the Quantum Reanimites. If your opponent is stacked with some scary mortal wound options like a Melt-A-Gun and such, having this item and moving as a group can limit the overall incoming damage greatly with its 4+ Feel No Pain that only works on mortals. All good options in the right moments and on the right units. Hunker down, we got some things to go over. Let's start with the cryptic choices. These all received huge buffs in the Dataslate. Better ballistic skill and weapon skill. More wounds, a free unique ability, all incredible. And in case you missed it on the first pass, they all come with fly. First up, the Chronomancer. Considered by many to be the strongest choice. Great adaptable weapon choices for both elites and horde. All cryptics come with the ability to ping-pong their shots off the Apprentice for some reroll benefits as well. This is extremely strong now with the improved ballistic skill. The command ability this, as well as the rest of the cryptics come with, was made free and allows certain units near it, or the Despotech, to trigger a fight, an overwatch, or a 1 AP pickup or mission action. This was hell to use before it was made free and is very necessary to trigger some fantastic combos. This is where we get into the best part of the buff in my opinion. Hopefully this doesn't get reverted so it ruins the whole video. Oh god. Either way, all cryptics get to choose 2 abilities from a list when chosen for the roster that are usable over the course of the match they are deployed in. These used to only last to the end of the turn for the most part. They are now some of the few abilities in the game that last until the next time the unit that used them activates, or until they are redeployed by another unit or the casting unit is incapacitated. Also note that if the cryptic is downed during the game, these abilities aren't made inaccessible by the Apprentice to use for himself. Consider them to be sort of part of the overall game and not so much tied to the individual character. The Chronomancer abilities are as such. Time Splinter, which allows you to make an ally's unmodified save into an invulnerable save as long as it is within range for the initial use. Countertemporal Nanomine creates an area 6 inches from the casting unit with a 6-inch radius that reduces enemy movement that passes into it by 2 inches. This is a live reduction and not a modifier. Keep that in mind. Basically, if the unit measures a move that is supposed to pass into the area and decides to go that way, reduce it by 2 inches or end the move just before the circle. This also affects things like dash and charge. The last Chronomancer ability is the Chronometron. This is a buff that provides a unit with an extra 3 inches to movement as well as a 5+ Feel No Pain. This used to be good when you needed an immortal in the front line with a little more survivability, but the following turn could leave it in a bad spot. Not anymore with the between turn persistence. The Technomancer is usually considered the next most useful leader. This one is focused on healing. His weapon choice is pretty strong for single target. Core abilities are all the same. The cryptic actions choosable include Canoptic Repair. This is a single target heal. The target must be within 3 inches and they will regain 2d3 wounds unless they recently resurrected. Then they just get 1d3. Nanoscarab Repair Swarm is a map-wide between turn buff that causes units to prevent regular injury, as well as gaining 1 additional wound from living metal and 1 additional wound when resurrected. With bare minimum rolls, that will revive an immortal at 8 health. Last up, Rites of Reanimation. Normally, there are only 2 ways to trigger the resurrection for the Hierotek. This ups that to 3. When used, the unit becomes a 6-inch aura. The first ally that is incapacitated within that range can be triggered for revive. Again, this will last between rounds. The last cryptic option is considered the weakest, but I still love it, especially in close quarters. specifically for the gun. 5 attacks, 3 up to hit on a 2/2 damage line isn't amazing. AP2 is great, but blast and splash on the same gun? In close quarters, this also gets lethal 5. Consider that every unit that triggers the blast roll will also cause splash. All units involved have a chance to trigger a spread of mortal wounds across all units within range in a tight 2-inch cluster. This is a scary concept. The abilities actually aren't that bad either, especially with the between turn function. Conjure Trauma lets you pick a visible target and treat it as a super injured unit. It is an injury that counters most injury immune functions. This can be really good. Nightmare Shroud is also incredible with the buff. The unit that uses it becomes a 6-inch aura in which no dice can be rerolled and all crits are considered normals. Great for shutting down mortal wound teams. Harbinger of Despair can be placed anywhere visible, and it creates a 2-inch aura that makes performing mission actions or pickup actions cost 1 more action point. It also considers all local enemies to be 1 less APL when it comes to determining control of an object. Placed dead center of an objective makes the whole point like this. Devastating in loot-based mission types. These were the Cryptics, great leaders for the Hierotek Circle, but let's see who they're leading. The small mission workhorses of the Hierotek are the Plasmacytes. You take an Accelerator and a Reanimator variant. Both can fly and are able to move a full 6 inches. They are both very fragile, but their super conceal makes them very hard to kill in cover. You don't need to pull them out of conceal for much, since their focus is on capturing points and providing the team benefits. Thankfully, these benefits have been buffed. The Accelerator can increase either a Deathmark or Immortal's APL by 1. This used to cost an action point and was only usable within 3 inches. Now it is free and can be used up to 6 inches away. Remember that APL gain does go away the next time the unit is activated, so this can help in that turn or be saved by a unit that has already gone for the next turn. The Reanimator is a constant reanimation beam aura. Once per turn, it can trigger the resurrection protocol on the first Hierotek unit to be downed within 6 inches of it. This used to hit the unit with a -1 to its APL, like a stun. Now it just does this and remains unaffected. These buffs may seem small, but since the Plasmacytes tend to be the workforce of the capture points, having full access to their 2 APL is very liberating. The Apprentice is the first of the Hierotek mini-bosses. The mini-bosses received some stat buffs, making them more accurate and durable. The Apprentice, like the Cryptic, can use the ability to ping-pong its shots off its leader for some rerolls. The other purpose of the Apprentice is to use whatever ability the Cryptic isn't planning on using for the round. The anti-crit and reroll aura the Psychomancer has is great, but putting the leader up front might suck. Let this little guy take the heat instead. The Despotek is the other mini-boss. It is also the start of the units that can only move 4 inches. Remember that with the current data slate, units can't be modified to move slower than 4 inches. So even in a wounded state, not much will change with these units outside of their attacking. Like the Immortals we will talk about, it is equipable with either a great single target weapon or an alright splash gun. Don't forget that splash confers lethal 5 in close quarters. Probably the best place for it. The ability it comes with is Demand. This used to cost an action point. Not great for the 2 APL units. Now that it is free, the Despotek can provide a nearby Deathmark or Immortal, including itself with a free command reroll. You might think to use it on this unit, but consider that its improved ballistic skill makes it hit on 2s. Might be better to buff a 3-up Immortal. Speaking of which, the standard Immortals are just a weaker version of the Despotek. No abilities to speak of outside the team-wide one, just a good frontline workhorse. The alternative to the Immortal is the Deathmark, the team's mini-sniper. Same stats as the Immortal, but its gun hits on 2s. The damage line is, on paper, exactly the same as the Gauss Blaster. It just gets 1 mortal wound for the crits that goes through even if the crit save is rolled. These are the units. So how do we build a team? As usual, we will be building for a one-off casual game. Looking into a deeper way of forming a roster is in another video I've put out, and I'll have it linked. For the Hierotek though, you have to take 1 Cryptic. Experience, Killzone, and matchup will help with the decision, but normally a Chronomancer is taken here. This unit doesn't come in the initial box, and it has a smaller base than the unit that is included, so I had to pick it up separately. You then choose its cryptic abilities and weapon as you see fit for the match. You are made to take both plasma sights as well. This is a good thing, really. Past this core, you get to pick 5 units from a list: an Apprentic, a Despotek, Immortals, and Deathmarks. Even before their buffs, the Apprentic and the Despotek were already very useful. Now there is no reason not to take them. You can only take one of each. For the last 3, you can take however many Deathmarks and Immortals as you want. The average map will see 2 Immortals and 1 Deathmark. A lot of this has to do with some of the Tac Ops, as well as the ability for the Deathmark to get an early game forward capture using the Ploy. The issue is, the forward deployed Deathmark is not as durable in melee as its Immortal counterpart. Consider the matchup, consider the mission, consider the Tac Ops. Maybe saving the command point for later and going 3 Immortals is the way. And of course, pick their weapons accordingly. Let me give you some quick food for thought. Many of the big team combos come from the cryptic leader you choose, and I'm like 90% sure this is completely above board. I'm sure you'll all let me know if I'm wrong in the comments below. Let's set the stage. Many units have already gone. The Despotek has moved and dashed to get to a point it didn't capture. The Apprentic is buffed with an invulnerable save and is on high ground. It is time for the Cryptic to go. Let's maximize the move. The Cryptic activates in engage, and a command point is spent on leech power, taking an APL from the nearby reanimator. 4 usable action points. For free, command is used to make the out-of-sight Despotek capture its point. 1 point is spent to move the Cryptic onto a nearby point with its flight. 1 point spent on counter-temporal nanomine to help prevent the oncoming enemies from getting to the point easily. 1 point spent to capture the mission target. 1 point spent on shoot, using the Apprentic as the source of the shooting, giving it the ability to reroll all of a single number it rolls and opens fire on the concealed units in light cover with its blast weapon. A symphony of devastation in one activation. You'll find that most big combos for the team comes from this type of activation sequence. Even without leech power, there is still a lot that can be done in a single turn from the Cryptic. I've always considered myself a Legionary main, but this Hierotek buff has me feeling ways about stuff. I see so many avenues for counterplay and killzone dominance out of the new toolbox the Q1 2023 Dataslate has provided them. They have me excited. If anything changes on that front, I'll try to add little addendums to this video through the YouTube Shorts function. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this video has helped you in your quest to either pilot or fight against the Necron forces of the Hierotek Circle. If you're interested in more deep dive videos, let me know. The Hierotek were requested a bunch in the Wormblade overview video I did prior to this. How do you feel about the Hierotek after the Dataslate? Are you as interested in their capabilities as I am? If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe and make a sacrifice to the algorithm gods by tapping that like button. I am Kimmerix, and I'll see you in the next one.